December 5th, 1941. 2,000 German tanks within sight of Moscow's spires are immobile, not destroyed by Soviet guns, not knocked out in combat. Frozen solid by -40 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. The closest Germany ever came to Moscow, and their tanks couldn't move. This is every tank defeated by winter before firing a single shot. Panzer III. The Panzer III formed the backbone of German armored divisions during the invasion of the Soviet Union, designed for maneuver warfare in temperate conditions. Its mechanical systems relied on lubricants and tolerances that performed adequately in Western Europe but failed in deep cold. When winter arrived unexpectedly in late 1941, engines became increasingly difficult to start, transmissions seized, and fuel lines froze. Many Panzer IIIs were abandoned along roads and assembly areas before ever reaching combat positions. Their loss mattered not because of enemy superiority, but because operational momentum collapsed as armor units stalled. Panzer IV. The Panzer IV was intended as an infantry support tank and shared many mechanical vulnerabilities with the Panzer III. Though robust by design standards of the 1932nd, it lacked winterization features such as engine heaters and cold weather lubricants. During the first Soviet winter, Panzer IV units reported widespread immobilization during staging and redeployment. Crews resorted to lighting fires beneath engines or draining fluids nightly, delaying movements and preventing timely engagement. Tanks that never fired still shaped the campaign by reducing Germany's ability to sustain offensive pressure. Italian L6 over 40. Italy deployed the L6 over 40 light tank to the Eastern Front as part of its expeditionary forces. Designed for Mediterranean climates, the vehicle was lightly armored and mechanically fragile even under ideal conditions. In Russian winter conditions, the L6 over 40 suffered severe cold-related failures. Engines stalled, suspensions stiffened, and track components cracked. Many vehicles became immobile during transit or assembly, unable to enter combat. Their freezing illustrated how strategic alliances extended commitments without adapting equipment to local realities. Hungarian 38M Toldi. The Hungarian Toldi was a light tank optimized for reconnaissance and mobility rather than endurance. Its automotive systems were sensitive to temperature extremes, and it lacked insulation or heating for prolonged cold exposure. During winter operations alongside German forces, Toldi units experienced high non-combat losses due to frozen engines and brittle components. Tanks frequently failed before contact with Soviet forces, limiting Hungarian armored participation and underscoring the environmental mismatch between design, intent, and operational theatre. Romanian R2. The Romanian R2, derived from a pre-war Czechoslovak design, entered service as Romania-committed armoured units to the Eastern Front. While mechanically reliable in moderate climates, it was never engineered for sustained sub-zero operations. As winter set in, R2 tanks encountered frozen fuel systems, immobilized suspensions, and engine failures during staging. Many vehicles were rendered non-operational before battle deployment, reducing Romania's armoured strength at critical moments. Their freezing reflected how industrial limitations translated into battlefield vulnerability. T-26 light tank. The T-26 was one of the most numerous tanks in Soviet service at the outbreak of war, designed in an earlier era with limited emphasis on extreme winter resilience. While Soviet doctrine included cold weather experience, the tank itself had aging mechanical systems. During the Winter War and early phases of the German invasion, some T-26 units suffered cold-related breakdowns during movement rather than combat. Frozen engines and brittle components sidelined vehicles before engagement, highlighting that even winter-experienced armies were constrained by outdated equipment. Panzer II. The Panzer II was already obsolete by 1941, but remained in service due to shortages. Its light construction and small engine made it particularly vulnerable to cold-induced failures. In winter conditions, Panzer II units frequently failed during redeployment or reconnaissance missions. Engines seized, and gearboxes malfunctioned before any exchange of fire. Though tactically limited, their immobilization further thinned German armored presence when every operational vehicle mattered. Czechoslovak 38. The 38 was valued by German forces for its reliability during early campaigns. However, its design assumptions still reflected Central European climates rather than prolonged Arctic cold. As temperatures dropped on the Eastern Front, even this dependable tank experienced freezing lubricants and stressed components during assembly and movement. Some units lost operational readiness before contact with the enemy, demonstrating that reliability was relative to environment. Valentine infantry tank. The Valentine was one of Britain's most reliable tanks, widely supplied to the Soviet Union under Lend-Lease. Designed with mechanical simplicity and heavy armor for its size, it performed well compared to many contemporaries, but it was not immune to severe cold. During winter operations in the Soviet Union, Valentine units experienced frozen lubricants, sluggish transmissions, and engine start failures when temperatures dropped rapidly. Some tanks became immobilized during staging or movement rather than combat. These incidents mattered because they demonstrated that even comparatively well-engineered Allied tanks required adaptation to function reliably in extreme winter warfare. Renault R-35. Captured Renault R-35 tanks were pressed into German service after the fall of France and later deployed in secondary roles on the Eastern Front. Originally designed for Western European conditions, the R-35 emphasized armor over mechanical resilience. In winter conditions, the R-35 suffered frequent engine failures, frozen cooling systems, and drivetrain stress before reaching combat zones. Several vehicles were abandoned during redeployment or security duties due to cold-related breakdowns. Their freezing illustrated how repurposed equipment, never intended for harsh climates, became a logistical burden rather than a combat asset. Type 95 Ha-Go. The Type 95 Ha-Go was Japan's primary light tank during the early years of the war, designed for operations in China and Southeast Asia. Its light construction and air-cooled engine were ill-suited for extreme cold. During border clashes with Soviet forces and winter operations in Manchuria, Ha-Go tanks experienced severe cold start problems and mechanical failures before engagement. Engines struggled to operate in sub-zero temperatures, immobilizing vehicles prior to combat. These failures underscored how regional design assumptions limited effectiveness when climate conditions shifted dramatically. M3 Stuart light tank. The M3 Stuart was designed for speed and reliability in temperate and tropical environments, emphasizing mobility over protection. Early in the war, it was supplied to Allied forces, including Soviet units, through Lend-Lease agreements. During winter operations in the Soviet Union and northern training deployments, some M3 Stuarts suffered cold-related mechanical failures before entering combat. Fuel thickening, frozen lubricants, and battery failures prevented engines from starting after prolonged exposure to sub-zero temperatures. These incidents mattered because they revealed that even modern Allied designs required winter-specific adaptation, reinforcing that cold-weather warfare punished assumptions as harshly as enemy fire. Winter exposed the limits of armored warfare when technology outran preparation. Tanks that froze before firing revealed that mechanical reliability was as decisive as armor or firepower. Across the Eastern Front, losses without combat reshaped campaigns by slowing advances, reducing unit strength, and forcing doctrinal adaptation. Armies learned that climate could defeat armor more efficiently than opposing guns. The experience drove lasting changes in military engineering, from cold-weather lubricants to engine heaters and simplified maintenance procedures. These lessons, paid for by immobilized steel in frozen fields, permanently altered how armies prepared for war. In World War II, winter did not merely challenge tanks, it judged them. Those unprepared were defeated before battle began, proving that in mechanized warfare, environment is an unforgiving enemy.